Hi Fad Campers, it's Grace here and I have some new stand-up dates I'd love to tell you about. If you're based in the UK, I will be doing some dates in July and August and I'd love to see some of you there. I'll be in Leeds doing a work in progress with Amy Annette on July 4th in the Hyde Park Book Club. I'll be in Brighton on July 6th with Alison Spittle in the Comedia Comedy Club, and I'm going to be doing my own work in progress show in Glasgow on July 12th at Good Egg Comedy. Also then I will be at the Edinburgh Fringe, of course, for the entirety of August, from July 30th to August 24th. I'll be at the Assembly George's Square, the Crate, 10 to 3 every day. Would love if you could tell anyone you know who's going to be at the Edinburgh Fringe to come see my show. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
This show is part of the Head Stuff Podcast Network.
Hello, Fad Camp listeners. It's Grace here. Let's be honest, your favourite Fad Camp presenter. We won't tell Conor. As you might know, I am a stand-up comedian and I'm currently working on a new show. I'll be performing all over the UK over the next few months, whipping my new show, Did You Hear We're All Going to Die, into shape. I would love to see some of you there. It's going to be great crack. So I'll be at the Leicester Comedy Festival on February 6th. In London, I'll be at the Top Secret Comedy Club March 6th. The Glasgow, I'll be at the Glasgow International Comedy Festival March 15th. And I'll be at the London Irish Centre with Alison Spittle on March 27th. That's going to be a great gig. There'll be even more shows announced for further months. All of the details and tickets are in the link on my Instagram bio, which is Grace Mulvey Comedy. So just go to my Instagram account, Grace Mulvey Comedy, click on the link and you'll get all the details. Thanks.
What's the best way to reduce? Eat plenty or starve yourself?
30 pounds in just 18 weeks. Jenny Craig totally worked.
I love to eat, but overeating made it impossible to lose weight.
My body wants bread, and I'm going to give my body what it wants.
Oh my God.
So I lost
Naturally.
Medical studies prove that overeating is the number one reason for weight gain. If you need to lose weight, use safe and natural springs away and bring your weight down without the use of
Welcome to Fad Camp, a podcast that throws a comedy eye over our societal obsession of diets. Now, a little disclaimer, we are not health experts, but we are fad diet connoisseurs. I'm your host, comedian Grace Mulvey.
And I'm your co-host, Conor Dowling.
Welcome to Fad Camp.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode of Fad Camp. You are very welcome. Grace, thank you for joining me on the show today.
Oh, delighted to be invited, Conor. Delighted to be invited.
Grace, did you know that Fad Camp is almost 4 years old?
Stop.
Yeah, so
our little toddler.
I know, exactly.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be appropriate to talk about something that 4-year-olds like to talk about, which is
Boo-boos.
Fatphobia.
Oh, stop. What?
Yeah, I know. This was a tough one in the old research now.
The kids are getting in there early.
They are, absolutely. I mean, I think from personal experience, we can say, like, you know, it's probably come up a lot on the show over the years, how, you know, childhood is kind of the breeding ground for a lot of the kind of, you know, the fat phobia and the fat shaming and the trauma. And the trauma. Oh,
just rolling it out
just
there.
Throwing that out.
Yeah.
Trauma is just a little word you just throw out there these days. But yeah, it's even though we have made a lot of, you know, advancements in our kind of sensitivity and understanding towards, you know, body positivity and diet culture and fat phobia, there's still a lot of deep, you know, issues that are happening today that I'm sure a lot of the parents listening can relate to, you know. And for me, I'm going to talk a little bit about the media that our kids consume. Not so much social media, more so like, you know, like cartoons and movies and that kind of thing.
We say our kids. Neither of us have children. But we're like, listen, we feel like everyone is our child.
The nation's children under God.
He watched Conclave last night.
Yeah, I did, yeah. That brought up some stuff. But also, I'm going to talk about the media that the children consume, and also the bullying and some potential alternative kind of, you know, ways of thinking about these kind of things. So I'm curious, Grace, are you familiar with the cartoon Bluey?
Oh, I love Bluey.
You love Bluey?
Oh, like, you know, I have nieces.
Okay, yeah.
And I have now interacted with the world of Bluey. And like, weirdly, Bluey just started coming up on my TikTok. And like, it's weirdly like mesmerising. I cannot even understand why I like it.
Yeah.
Like, it's great.
Wow.
But I am just like, yeah, I could watch this for days.
Bluey is a sensation. Like, it really like blew up, and particularly kind of during the pandemic.
It's an Australian cartoon,
It is indeed, from the ABC network. And did you hear about their controversial fat shaming episode in 2023?
It's like the dad or something.
Well, yeah. So, like, I mean, I'm sure anyone who's listening to this who's a parent has probably definitely seen Bluey. But, like, you know, if you haven't seen it, they're like a family of, like, I don't know, like, what are they? Chipmunks? Dogs?
They're dogs.
They're
obviously dogs.
What are they, cats and dogs? Yeah.
What is this, a cow?
Yeah. They're a family of dogs. It's very cute. And every episode they have some sort of like little adventure with some sort of like lesson or moral. And it's pretty standard kind of preschool kind of, you know, at preschool maybe like age like, you know, 3 to 6 or 3 to 7 or something like that. But like the whole family can enjoy it. And it's massively successful. It's Emmy Award winning. It's internationally like successful, and it's been broadcast in more than 60 countries, including the UK, US, and China. And it was streamed for more than 20 billion minutes on Disney Plus in the US. Like last year, I think that was like 2023.
It's probably coming in behind. Did you hear like The Crackling Fire was like the #1 show
God,
on Netflix?
Exactly.
It's behind The Crackling Fire, but that's
like,
it.
That show is big. I love that show. Everyone's seen it. So there was an episode now. It's quite a wholesome show. Like, you know, it's not pushing any major boundaries, like, you know, for the most part. And there was an episode in 2023 that was creatively called Exercise. And it begins with the kids in the bathroom with their dad, and he's weighing himself, and he's kind of grabbing his stomach and saying, like, you know, I don't know exactly what he says, but he's kind of complaining about his weight and he needs to lose a few pounds, etc. And then the mom comes in, and I think she like agrees with him and gets on the scales herself, then weighs herself and says the same thing about herself. Which then, this is the setup for the episode where the family then go on a bunch of like exercising together, and like they have like, you know, their ups and downs with exercising, but ultimately like they have fun exercising together as a family, right? Now, a lot of viewers watching it were uncomfortable, particularly seeing the parents kind of, you know, sort of fat shaming themselves in front of the kids like that. And not just that, but they were saying that, like, I think a lot of people were saying like, hey, look, there's nothing wrong with the family like kind of exercising together, having fun together. But if they're doing it for
weight loss
reasons, and not just weight loss, but being like unhappy with how their body looks, then
not a great lesson for kids.
Exactly. And that's something that we kind of all grew up with, like in the real world in the 90s. And we kind of thought maybe we were like, you know, had moved past that a little bit, you know?
I also think it's like, as well, like, listen, I know we're talking about cartoon dogs, but you know, Blue's parents are the parents of young children.
Yes.
But like, do you know what I mean?
They're millennial parents.
They're millennial parents, but they are representing parents of young kids who, let's be honest, like, I'm going to say for Bluey's mommy, you cranked out 2 kids. Leave Bluey's mommy alone.
Yeah, a whole litter of 2 dogs.
2 dogs,
you know,
okay?
This makes lots of sense.
Is there some sort of episode where poor Bluey like realises that loads of litter were sold off?
They were just adopted from a puppy farm. That's a more problematic episode.
Bluey's getting dark, but it's not shying away from the big stuff. But no, okay, listen. It is just that thing where it's like, let's be honest, parents of young kids have the least amount of time to go and exercise. And like, for it to be, it's because you've put on a few pounds, like, give them the fucking break. You can do any exercise episode for any other reason. Literally, you could have the dad come in and go like, you know what, we haven't been out of the house in ages. I feel really sluggish. I'd love to get moving with the kids. That is all you need to the start of that show.
I'm feeling a bit depressed. What have I done with my life? I thought I'd be more than just a dad.
The dad comes in and goes, I regret having children.
Yeah.
I actually preferred being able to exercise every day than having these goddamn kids.
But
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, it's very easily solved. Yeah.
It is. And this is 2023. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you would kind
We had Lizzo already.
Exactly.
Come on.
You had Fad Camp in your ears by this stage for like 3 years. So... yeah, there was a bit of a public kind of, you know, uproar like online and people complaining about it and, you know, that kind of thing. People basically felt that, you know, you should be exercising for fun and to feel healthy, and not just because you're doing it because you're unhappy with your body, and that sends a negative message to kids. Now, apparently, the Australian show on the ABC network, it was edited to address those concerns. So they changed the episode, which is like, if you're a massive show with a massive budget, like you can get in there and do a quick rewrite or a quick re-edit or something like that,
Again, because it's a cartoon.
It's a cartoon, exactly. It doesn't have to live in permanent kind of record, and I think it's great that they listened. I feel bad for the writer who was like, "Oh, here's a very relatable thing."
The writer probably that day stepped on the scales and was like, "You know what?
This is the world we live in." But I'm definitely speculating here because I don't know the specific writer of that episode. I think the showrunner actually is one of these kind of like all-in creators who writes pretty much every episode, or probably oversees every episode.
He is a dog.
Yeah, it's from personal experience. But they probably are, right? Like if you or I were to be like, well, what's a typical day of a child when I was growing up? It's like, there were family members weighing themselves and being unhappy about their bodies in front of us without kind of hiding it. In fact, it can be seen in a lot of cases to be encouraging, that like, if a parent is like taking an interest in their own body, then that will filter down to the child, but actually the child it seems to be quite likely to just kind of pick up the kind of like...
Well, a parent taking an interest in their health is still deemed as being like, I've gotten too fat.
Exactly.
That is not the same as health.
No,
and again,
it's not.
I'm like, it's 2023 when this came out. Lads, come on. Because actually, I will say, Bluey, if anyone knows Bluey, right? And again, I have nieces, but I don't live with my nieces. So like, I don't know why I don't know this much about Bluey, but there's a really great clip that went around on TikTok about how they addressed like Bluey's mom's sister, so the auntie, having fertility issues.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So they managed to represent that in a way that children would understand and still can't do that for like your body. I still think I'm like, am I smacking my head against a wall here? Like, how are we not updating this?
And I think it's because, talking about like something like, and I haven't seen the fertility issues episode, and I think that's amazing that they did that, but that almost seems like it's such a it's a less kind of subtle and insidious kind of topic.
Yeah.
Then, it's more like, if that's going on, that's really like, oh wow, we really need to talk about this in a really kind of delicate way.
Yeah.
But the kind of the fat shaming thing, to a lot of people, that scene in Bluey would just be quite like innocent, you know, and commonplace, and nothing to be worried about. Clearly, a lot of people signed off on it. It was broadcast, like a lot of people basically said, yeah, this is okay and this is normal and this is like reflective of like people's everyday lives, So I think I don't blame the writers. I don't blame anyone because it has just been kind of programmed into, the way we look at ourselves and look at the world. So like continuing on, like fat representation then among characters and TV shows, like we've talked about that like in Hollywood and that sort of thing, but like in kids shows.
We had Baby Reindeer in 2024. What a great time to be alive.
And Penguin. We got Colin.
Yes, 2 for 2. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. One for the good guys. But, we often have kids programs where there are just no fat characters among the main cast. And if there is an episode, and this particular, like I'm thinking about the shows that we grew up watching, like Saved by the Bell and, later stuff, maybe like iCarly and those kind of shows on Nickelodeon. If there's an episode regarding weight issues, it's often like a storyline given to a slim character who is worried about becoming fat, but is eventually reassured that she has nothing to worry about,
Oh, that'll never happen to you. Yeah.
Over Christmas, I watched the original masterpiece of a film, Matilda, with my family. The OG, with my extended family. I absolutely loved it. I was literally like, I went back into Letterboxd, follow me on Letterboxd. I went back into Letterboxd and I think I had given it like 4 stars. I was like, no, this is a 5-star film.
It's actually a fabulous film.
I love this film. And I also, like, I don't think I realised back in the day that it's like directed by Danny DeVito.
Listen, I just watched a clip of behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah.
Of how they did the
hair, it's being thrown around by the hair. Yeah, and he's directing, So, and like, but we can't forget that Roald Dahl, our beautiful genius storyteller Roald Dahl, his stuff can be a bit of a hotbed for fat
controversy, but controversy in general. Let's be honest.
Controversy in general. That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, we're not touching that.
Yeah, we're not going there. But who could forget Augustus Gloop from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?
That poor little German boy just wanted a bit of chocolate. The lad just wanted a bit of chocolate.
The poor little boy, the poor little actor. But then,
his mother as well.
As a result, but all fat children then because of that, because these are the examples that children are being shown. The fat character, not only are they not the main character, they're not a smart character. They're not even.
Oh, they're always stupid. They're always a bit like Augustus Gloop is slow.
Yeah, that kid deserved to go in that.
He was eating the mic.
He was a fucking idiot. I'm sorry.
No, listen. No one was happier than me than Augustus Gloop went in that river. No, but you know what I mean? Like, he was quite an annoying character.
Yes.
But again, it's like the sweetheart character is always the thin child. And God, that's so true. Like, where are the fat kids? The fat kids are always a bit slow. Yeah. They're always kind of to be pitied.
Yes.
They're never really the main character, gritty, sort of like loud. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they never have any power.
No, exactly. And, there's this famous scene in Matilda when the character Bruce is like we were talking before in another episode about being publicly fat shamed. There's a moment in Matilda where the character of Bruce is brought out onto a stage for his love of chocolate cake and forced to eat this gigantic chocolate cake on stage. Now, this scene is there's so much to unpack in this scene because, yes, there's a fat child being fat shamed for loving chocolate cake, right? Mm-hmm. But he comes out the other side of this scene like triumphant, like everyone's like cheering.
It's not gonna lie, I see it as a bit of a win.
It's a win.
It's a win.
Right. So it's kind of confusing because at one stage, like as a fat child, you're watching it being like, oh my God, this is my worst nightmare. Yeah. It's like humiliation at the highest level. But he comes out victorious. Now, at the end of that scene, Miss Trunchbull smashes something over his head and knocks him out. So it's very like wacky and very silly.
Also, can I just say, the only other fat person in the film, Bartani DeVito, actually is this woman who is a gigantic woman and very strong and made out to be like disgusting.
Yes. So, well, I'll come to that now in a second because that's also part of it, right? So the fat child being force-fed cake on stage, that's definitely more overt, even though it has that twist at the end where all of the kids are like on his side, I
also would love for people to chant for me when I finish off a gigantic meal.
A gallon of cream.
Imagine people did that. I'm like, thank you so much. Yes, I'm able to do it.
Gracie, here's the hard part. I told you at the start, I was watching this with like extended family.
Yeah.
And the kids are there, my niece and nephews. And like, they're kind of like, they're laughing at the scene and there's so much going on, but like, it's very clear to them, at a young age that you should be laughing at this fat boy. And they were kind of, laughing at him more than laughing with him. And I kind of corrected them a little bit. I was like, oh, like they were kind of calling him fat and stuff like that. And I was like, he's heavy and stuff. But like...
He is fat, but like also that's grand.
Yeah, but they're saying it as an insult.
But I know what you mean. Yeah, you're trying to correct that. Yeah.
And, but at the same time, I don't blame them because they're just following very clear
cues. They are following the adults in the room. Yeah. They are following the writer that wrote it. They are following the people who filmed it. They're following... Like, I always think this. I'm always like, God, like we are actually so disappointing as adults.
I know.
Because we tell kids to respect each other. We tell kids all this stuff and we never follow by example.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is.
Yeah.
And actually, that's to bring it back to the Bluey thing. It's example. What your parents do, you do.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Exactly.
Or you pick up as that's the right thing to do.
Yeah. And it's also like more kind of, it becomes harder to kind of illustrate a lesson when, like, I started this by telling you what a masterpiece I think this film is, like as a kids movie, as a family film. And then I'm like zoning in on this one thing and being like, yeah, but see this, like we're not allowed kind of, look at it in a certain way. But like you're being guided through the whole process to kind of look at it in this way.
Well, here's the funny thing, because I think like that's almost getting into this argument of like, like fat people can be awful. Like, isn't it?
Sure.
A fat person like can be the terrible character, like in this, the villain. Like that's no problem if you're showing fat people as everything else as well. But that's the problem, you're not.
Yeah, exactly.
When you just put fat people into this sort of slow, ridiculed, never the powerful character, never the character of desire, never the character that is just a person, then actually we're going to point out that all you do is show fat people a certain way. And for children, the fact that I cannot think of an example of a fat child that their fatness isn't either a part of the issue of the film. You know what I mean? Like it's
or
like
a signifier that they are of lower intellect or moral kind of fibre.
Yeah,
you know,
that's what I mean. It's like the fact that I can't think of that. I'm like, Christ, what are we telling kids?
I know. Like, what chance do they have, right? If that's what they're kind of constantly being given. Now, that's something from like the 90s, right? So, funnily enough, there was a recent musical movie remake of Matilda, and the same scene exists. You know, it's just done in a different way. Now they've cast a non-fat kid and stuffed his school jumper with like padding and pillows. So the idea of the scene is still very much the same, but the way they've done it is kind of slightly different. So it's kind of mind-boggling. Like, I really genuinely don't know how to feel about that. Like, I don't.
So they hired a thin kid, pretended he was fat,
stuffed him with pillows, like, and it looks kind of dodgy. It looks kind of comedic. Maybe that's part of the kind of joke, that it looks kind of like.
But then why? I suppose they don't want to scar a fat
child.
Then what does that mean by doing the scene in the first place?
Right. And then does it like, you want to talk about like opportunities for fat actors, and it's like, well, do you want to give a fat child actor the chance to play this character or not? Like,
well, the way I would look at it, if you're going to do that, right, by that logic, I'd put a bunch of fat actor kids, I don't know how I'm going to say this, in other roles that were normally for thinner kids and make them normal characters.
I haven't examined the new Matilda film through that lens. I wouldn't be surprised, now I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt, I wouldn't be surprised if there are supporting characters who are, fat kids that aren't like total idiots. But you know, I'm just
it's a weird thing. I would love to see the logic of what they thought about that.
I'd say they had a tricky one. I'd say they had a hard time with that.
It's a benefit of the doubt in the sense that they're like, we don't want to put a fat child through that because that can be really scarring. But at the same time, then why are we keeping this scene in the film? Actually, why wouldn't you even just do it with a thin kid? Why don't you just make the kid thin?
Yeah,
and
he loves cake.
He loves cake.
Yeah.
And that's actually where the logic is that I don't understand.
Yeah, that's a great point. Why isn't there just an extra step where they go, maybe he doesn't have to be fat. Maybe he's just a glutton. You know what I mean?
Maybe this kid just loves chocolate cake and it's all he wants to eat. And like, that's, I think, again, where our thinking gets so limited.
Yeah.
Where we're like, no, but fat child like cake.
And yes, and that's a new t-shirt. But also...
no, but fat child like cake.
And just arrow pointing towards my face. But like, you know, that's quite interesting, because also you're still villainizing the kid in this scene, that he's being punished for being fat in both versions of the scene.
That's why I don't understand.
The villain in the scene is Miss Trunchbull, so she should be indiscriminate towards who she kind of punishes, right? Whether they're, do you know what I mean? Like, because she's the bad guy, right? So then, speaking of Miss Trunchbull, the other slightly more, I say subtle, but slightly more subtle facet of this kind of like, you know, body shaming, fat shaming kind of thing is, if we look at the original Matilda, we have a character, and you picked up on it straight away. It's a character whose strength and build as a woman is weaponized against the children. You know, like, she uses that as a way to kind of be imposing and attack the children. And it's also used for kind of comedic effect as well. So that's also sending messages to kids that, you know, and that's just one example of like a bad guy as a fat character.
But like, and again, that's like, do you know what? Again, because this brings me back to our argument when we were talking about Marvel. Do you remember we were kind of like, I was like, all of these strong women all happen to be very slim. When actually, like, you know, if you look at the Olympics, they're broader, they're bigger, whatever. So then when you do have a strong character who is broader and bigger, they're a villain.
Yeah,
they're not a person. Like, do you know what I mean? They're made out to be really ugly.
Yeah.
Where the difference being Encanto, where Louisa in Encanto, the cartoon, they have to specifically say she's beauty and she's brawn, because they're like, we consider her beautiful. It just is like so disappointing.
I know.
And wasn't it in the new one, Emma Thompson?
It was.
In a fat suit?
She was made up, but I had a look at her, and I don't think she's not like I don't know how to really comment on it, but she's made up to look almost unrecognizable.
Okay.
But I wouldn't straight away be like, she's wearing a fat suit. No.
Yeah.
But they've probably padded her out, because she's probably very thin in real life. But just if you juxtapose this character, Miss Trunchbull, to then the teacher, Miss Honey, who is portrayed as a much more delicate flower and beautiful, and she's the good guy. You know what I mean? Like, hands down. So those are just some subtle and some overt kind of cues for kids to see fat as evil and thin as good.
Hi, Fad Camp listeners. Myself and Conor finally got our act together and we have official Fad Camp merch up for sale. We are so excited. Now, my particular favourite is the enamel mug and the beanie, but we have loads of products for sale. So if you want to get any of our Fad Camp merch, please go to fadcamp.myshopify.com. That's fadcamp.myshopify.com. You'll be able to find the link to where our merch is for sale in our Instagram bio and our TikTok bio, as well as we'll have a little link in all of our episode descriptions.
Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the episode. If you want to hear more bonus exclusive content for Fad Camp, make sure to log on to Head Stuff Plus, and for as little as $5 a month, you can support our show and other shows in the Head Stuff Podcast Network and hear exclusive content from Fad Camp. That's bonus episodes, photos, videos. It's a really good time, so we hope to see you there. Now, back to the show.
In 2017, there was an op-ed about Peppa Pig and how Daddy Pig. First of all, Daddy Pig, if you've ever seen that show, now that show, you talk about Bluey being mesmerizing and, addictive. Peppa Pig, they've tapped into something like really, like, they figured it out. A 1 month-old baby is watching that being like, this is for me.
You can almost see, like the mesmerizing thing of the circle going around. You can almost see that happen in the baby's eyes.
Oh, totally straight. It's like,
hypnotized.
We've lost the child now. That's them done. But Daddy Pig is like the butt of every joke. Poor Daddy Pig. But not just that. It's they fat shame the crap out of him. There's stuff where he can't fit into the treehouse because he's too fat and all. But there is an op-ed in 2017 that's like, can we stop fat shaming Daddy Pig already? That's like going back like, a few years ago now. But also in
the writer for Bluey's like, people won't mind this.
2017 study found that 84% of top grossing kids movies released between 2012 and 2015 promote weight stigma. A separate 2014 study published in the International Journal of Eating Disorders, which is my favorite international journal.
I don't know what journal you read. That's the only journal I have.
I have a subscription. This journal showed that 58% of youth-directed TV shows and cartoons also contain some kind of negative comment or incident related to a character's weight or appearance. 2015's SpongeBob movie Sponge Out of Water, which I actually haven't seen yet.
I haven't seen that.
I think that's like a live action-y kind of thing.
David Hasselhoff is in it, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I think that's the original one. And
I haven't seen it either.
Which I have seen. But this one includes a scene in which two fish go on a date, and in the background there's a lonely fat fish whose chair breaks and he's gorging on a cheeseburger. Jesus Christ. Poor fat fish.
But as well, like, even as a comedy writer, I'm like, is that funny? Like, as in, like, do you know when you're like, in this day and age,
it's low-hanging fruit.
It's such low-hanging fruit that I'm like, but I wouldn't, what I love is when I see things in the background of cartoons and stuff where it's just like so silly and stupid.
Yeah.
But that's just like mean.
I know.
And really weird. Like, I'm like, who in the thing was like, let's make the fish fat and his chair will break. And it's like, what?
I know. Well, there's clearly Fat Bastard from Asper's just from the accent.
Sorry, I don't know what accent I was doing there. I don't know why I went into some sort of, I apologise to anyone who has that accent. I wasn't doing an accent.
So people tend to offer up a lot of excuses when you bring up fat shaming in kids' media. They say obesity is a health crisis and they're just trying to teach kids to be healthy.
Yeah.
But studies show that fat shaming, guess what, has the opposite effect.
Stop, Conor.
Yeah.
Conor, no.
Yeah, I know. People who are fat shamed tend to gain more weight, would you believe?
What?
Yeah.
What?
A 2013 study by Leeds University found that kids start demonstrating prejudice against fat people at just 4 years old, as I said at the beginning of the episode. After reading stories with different versions of a character named Alfie, a fat Alfie, a thin Alfie, and an Alfie in a wheelchair, and then being asked to compare the characters on certain attributes, like their characteristics and their moral qualities, Kids said the fat version of Alfie would be less likely than the others to do well in school, be happy with his appearance, or have a lot of friends based solely on how he looked. And these biases don't just apply to fictional characters. Another 2017 study found that kids who are overweight are less liked by their peers and more likely to be bullied and excluded starting as early as the first grade, which is, for our American listeners who will know, but that's like you're about like 6 or 7 years old in first grade.
Do you know, this rings so true to me because the kind of only bullying I ever really experienced, overt bullying, was in primary school. So that would have been when I was like 6 to 12. And that's when I was a fat kid from like 6 years old. Apparently before that I was very underweight. Listen, like a fatted calf.
You could get away with it then. You could get away with it, you know.
But 6 to 12, I remember that being a really tough time to make friends for me. And I think that was pretty much because I was fat.
Yeah.
And then secondary school, weirdly, it's not like I got bigger, but I for some reason it changed as teenagers. I don't know what it is, but with kids it kind of is very black and white. When the way kids exclude other children is very black and white.
Yeah, for that era, for me, definitely tricky as well. And like for boys and girls, you're going to be facing different things. You know, a lot of crossover as well. But for me, it was like I was like a chubby or fat kid. And they were like, oh, well, you know, he's a broad kid, put him into sports. And then I'm like, well, guess what? I hate sports and I'm not good at them.
Can I just say that's such a male privilege that like you get called broad and put into sports. Well, that's, with the girls, it's like, hey, stop being this way.
No, that was the sugar coating. That was the nicest it ever. That's like my mom, you know, and everyone else is like, that kid's about to explode, you know. But yeah, like. So then it's like if you're put into like rugby or something like that, and they're like, oh, he'll be a great human shield. I was like, no, he's running the other direction. So just a couple more stats here. There's as many as 34% of 5-year-old girls have tried to restrict their food intake in order to lose weight. And 1 in 4 kids, both sexes, have been on a diet by age 7. I've also read that kids by the age of 9 and 10 in present day are likely to have tried or considered a fad diet or surgery to, change the way they look. Well, the way we talk about our bodies at home, like Bluey's parents, plays a major role in how kids view weight and body image. Researchers actually cite media exposure and appearance conversations as the strongest predictors of diet-related behaviour. So the things that they are consuming, you know, on TV, in movies, and online. Yeah,
and it's so like... it's so pervasive, like it's everywhere. Like as I know this whole thing of like restricting your children's access to YouTube and that's I think all great, and like they're talking about bringing in now age restrictions for even being able to go on Instagram, and like I think there should be like children's phones, which is that you cannot on these phones actually be able to download anything.
There kind of are, but like you give that to your kid and they throw it back in your face. And they'll give me an iPhone.
I know, and like, but at the same time, then they live in this world.
I know,
and this is a world that we are taking part in. And I think you can either opt out of some things and really you have to be so intentional with it. And for parents, I understand this might be terrifying. It's terrifying for me to read. Like if I found out any of my nieces were, I'd be like, I'm so like I'm so worried for them. Yeah. And I remember actually once, this is such great advice, when my niece Ayla was born, I don't know, I was like kind of complaining about something and I was like talking bad about myself, and my sister-in-law said, you know, like Ada thinks you're perfect.
Oh, that's
beautiful. To
beautiful.
her, you're perfect.
Amazing.
And I was like, yeah, because to me, she's perfect. And like when you look at your kids, they're perfect. You have to start thinking about yourself like that. Yeah. And I know it sounds really like, like, I don't know, I find, like Irish people in particular, we find it so hard to be like, love yourself, get out of here.
Yeah. Jesus, she loves herself a bit much.
Yeah. That's our attitude. Yeah. Oh, you love yourself, do you? Yeah. But you actually have to think like that around kids in particular, because you can't. You just can't let them.
You can't let it slip out, because even if that's how you are actually feeling, you know, you need to kind of present. I mean, who are we to say? Like, I mean,
no, but I mean, I'm holding myself to that standard around my nieces at least. And listen, again, I'm not around them 24/7, so easier for me. I pop in, pop out. Yeah. But actually, I'm like, like I just am always going to be a person who is going to try and like be around them, a person that they're like, geez, she looks like she's having a great life, and she's not. Yeah. Doesn't look like any of the people I see online.
Exactly,
you know?
Because, you know, while there will be parents who will be like pressured into putting their kids on a diet or making them do more exercise. Like, you know, it's kind of like going back to the Bluey example. It's like you can promote having an exercise and having healthy eating habits or whatever, healthy relationship with exercise, healthy relationship with your body, healthy relationship with food. You can promote that. You just have to look at the intention around it.
Yeah.
You know, and so like...
Or even what you say is the intention around it.
But like
you could have another intention in your head. Who cares? Like if you want to be like, actually, I would like to lose a few pounds, totally up yourself. But it's the saying of it out loud where you're like, maybe just say, I just love moving my body.
We love doing this sport thing as a family. Not because we hate our bodies. Why would we ever say that? That would be such a crazy
in front of our
thing to say.
kids. That'd be weird.
Yeah. I don't hate the way I look. I don't hate the way my child looks. I'm not worried that they're going to get made fun of.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like, yeah, you might have those fears, but like, you know, you do have the choice to kind of like reframe it a little bit for how you kind of talk to the kids. And like that's the thing, like, you know, me and Grace, we're not parents, and I can imagine there's probably parents sitting there being like, you know, it's all body positivity and all, it's all well and good for like fabulous celebrities like me and Grace and Lizzo, but they're worried about their kids, about their health and how they treat it and how they feel about themselves. And, you know, I think the subtext to all of this is, you know, it's bullying. Like, you know, we're worried about what other people are going to think, do and say, you know, around our kids. And I actually read an article on Psychology Today, which is a source that I've you know, referenced many times on the show, and often they have like really helpful stuff. But this one was a little bit like, I think they're just not getting it. Like basically, I feel like they're just getting it wrong. The article is entitled "How Kids Can Stop Fat Shaming in Its Tracks," right?
Guys, kids have a lot on their plate. There's colouring in to do, there's gaming to do. They have a lot going on,
so there's very much straight away from the title, but as I read on, I found out that it very much puts the onus on fat kids themselves to stop bullying from happening.
By just not being fat.
Yeah, like that's the obvious choice. What else you got?
Have you tried Ozempic? And you're like, I don't know.
There's just a big ad for Ozempic.
You can so see Ozempic coming in for kids.
No, don't worry. I'm not going to read the entire article, but I'll just read a couple little highlights from it. So basically, you know, they say body shaming is currently one of the most common forms of bullying. The incessant promotion of the ideal of thinness and simultaneous growing epidemic of obesity have combined. They've joined forces at last to make weight the most common target of body shaming.
I love that's something that unites.
Yeah, exactly. They've come together at last. So and then they go on to say that the reason that bullying and fat shaming has gone on to become an epidemic is because these efforts to prevent bullying are directed towards encouraging kids to stop bullying others. Right, so they're saying that that's the problem, that the perpetrators of the bullying are at fault here.
But we all know it's the victims that are at fault.
So the advice goes on to say, but if your child needs to wait for others to change, they may continue suffering indefinitely. Fortunately, the person best positioned to get your child to stop being bullied is none other than, wait for it, your child.
Oh my God. This is the same argument as what were you wearing?
Yes, yeah,
this
right.
Is the exact same argument. What are you talking about, man?
I feel a lot of sympathy for parents who will be looking for ways, you know, they hear their kids being bullied in school, it breaks their heart, they feel powerless, they go online, and this is a very one or two Googles away, like it's not hard to find this article, like, you know, they have a lot of kind of questionable advice around how, you know, children themselves, they say that one of the reasons that people bully us is to make us change and do better.
Are you?
Who wrote
this?
Psychology
Whoever wrote
Today.
This bullied mercilessly. They bullied people mercilessly when they were a kid, and they're like, do you know what? I actually don't think it was my fault.
Yeah, they cite a story from the actor Henry Cavill, who played Superman, who said that he was bullied for being fat as a kid, and instead of like letting it get to him and, you know, make him feel bad, he used it as motivation to become, you know, a beefcake. And then it has some kind of like, you know, typical, you know, suggestions of like role plays that parents can do with their kids that involve like, and this is the part that I find frustrating, because this has been told to me as an adult.
adult.
I barely know the word. In response to responding to comments that make me feel uncomfortable about my weight, whether I've put on weight or lost weight. And a lot of time people will say to kind of be funny about it, and fight back with humor and stuff like that. That's easier said than done. We can't all be hilarious comedians like Grace Mulvey.
Stop it!
You know what I mean?
It's crazy.
It's not a talent that we're all born with. So to tell an 8-year-old who has a bunch of kids, it's develop a tight 5 and hit them with some,
And guys, a type 5, it takes a long time to get a type 5.
It does. It's not as easy as Grace makes it look.
Okay, someone's a little natural out here.
Do you know what I mean? So I think that is one strategy that you can use, and it might come more naturally to others. But they're basically saying that if people see that their bullying is bothering you, they'll keep doing it, and it will get worse. I think
the question should be, why are thin people such cunts?
Exactly. What is wrong with your shitty kid?
What is wrong with thin people that they see a person who looks different from them and goes, well, you're a piece of shit. And here's the thing. I know I'm joking saying that. Obviously, kids, there's a lot going on there. But I am when I'm around thin people sometimes, I'm why are you obsessed with me?
Yeah.
Why are you obsessed with fat people?
Yeah.
What's the problem?
Absolutely.
What's the problem, baby girl?
Do you fancy me or something?
Here's what I'm looking at. Here's what I'm looking at. If you're so happy being thin, go off and be happy.
Yeah.
Why are you bothering people?
Yeah.
You know who is desperately unhappy? People who bully other people.
Absolutely.
People who fat shame other people. They are desperately unhappy people.
Yeah.
Why are you making other people's lives miserable? Now, I'm not talking about kids. I'm talking about adults. And this is where kids pick it up. They pick it up from adults. We bully each other all the time. And I'm only miserable people want to make other people miserable. If you are so happy being thin, if being thin is so fantastic, you should be having 100% a fabulous life, and you should be out there wishing the best for others.
And spreading that joy everywhere you go, you thin motherfucker.
But I mean that. I'm
absolutely.
What is wrong with thin people? Yeah. What's the problem with you? If you're so happy, if you're loving life, if it's all working for you, if Henry Cavill, fair play to him, if that worked for him, great. Good for him. I don't think mentally that's a great way to start from.
No.
But, I don't know. I don't know his background. I don't know him. But good for him. We all go very different ways. I cannot understand as how human beings, we don't get that someone else's life story and the way that the way life has worked out for them can be different from your own, and that's okay. Absolutely. How am I can be okay with Henry Cavill being a beefcake. I'm sure he can be happy with me being a lovely little chubby little princess. But you know what I mean? What'd you say?
A meatball.
A meatball.
That's what they call us.
Well, they can be happy with these two meatballs. You know what I mean? But that's what I mean. I'm just just get over it.
Yeah.
Whatever issue you have with fat people, get over it. If you're so happy, concentrate on yourself. Stop making our lives miserable.
That's the talk that these bully kids need to hear in school. And I'd just like to say as well, for any parents who are listening to this, if your kid is being bullied for their weight, I will personally attend the school of your bullies and I will kick the shit out of these bullies. Grace, I'm bigger than them.
Are you?
I'm an adult.
Can I just say, you're suddenly Miss Trunchbull from
I will fight them and I will win. Okay, so that is my fat camp promise. You can quote me on that. So through my research, I came across a very interesting author who I would love to have on the show at some point. Her name is Virginia Soul Smith. And she launched a very popular Substack blog called Burnt Toast. And she's gained a huge following among millennials who recognize that they'd rather not pass on their screwed up relationships with food and with their bodies to their kids. She's quoted as saying, "We all know the diet culture we grew up with in the 80s and 90s did a lot of damage. We don't want to be like our moms with their point counting." And she says, the problem is that most parents are still deeply afraid of having fat kids.
Yeah.
After publishing her first book, The Eating Instinct, about the US's cultural relationship to food, Saul Smith heard from a lot of parents who were trying to do better. It was clear that they really wanted their kids to feel good about their bodies and have a healthy relationship with food and not get eating disorders, but also to be thin, right? That's the thing. It's oh yeah, we really want our kids to be healthy, but if you could just snap their fingers and have them be thin, that would be great too. And she said, it's not hard to understand why. Her reporting on the subject documents the many ways the world is horrible to fat people, children included, but she's convinced that real progress isn't possible until we all start to recognize and unlearn our anti-fat bias, preaching to the choir here, Virginia. her new book, Fat Talk, Parenting in the Age of Diet Culture, which came out in 2023 and was like a bestseller, argues that if we really care about raising happy and healthy children, we need to get over our fear of fatness.
Yeah.
I actually have one more little excerpt from her, and then
That's so nice. I love that quote. Like, it's so true, this whole idea that we keep saying healthy, and what that means is we don't want them to be fat. My also thing is like parents fearing their children are fat. I fear my kid's a bully.
That's, yeah.
Do you know what, actually, I said this the other day on The Jump, my other podcast, but I find that a lot of people talk about their childhoods and they go, I was bullied. Well, where are the bullies? Everyone apparently was bullied, but someone must have bullied. And actually, there is a bit of a bully in all of us, I think. Yeah. And bully. Yeah. We can be also, many of us, I think near all of us have been bullied at some point, and we've also, sometimes in some of our relationships, been the bully. But no one wants to admit they've ever were a bully in school.
Yeah.
Well, someone was a bully.
Absolutely.
Because we were bullied.
Yeah.
So I actually be more worried that someone would knock on my door one day and tell me my child was bullying a kid for being fat. I would worry more about raising that arsehole than raising a fat kid.
Absolutely. And you know what? Just replace the fat with the word different.
Different.
You know,
different.
Your kid, whether they are fat or thin, are bullying a kid, making them feel other, making them feel left out.
Yeah.
Like that's the concern, you know. And some people would argue that we are hardwired to kind of exclude people for their differences. You know, some people would argue that. I don't know like what the kind of, you know, truth is to that. But I think you do see that a lot, like regardless of.
Yeah, I mean, listen, kids are like, and I mean this, like kids can be mean, and because they're trying things out. And I mean it, like, and it's a sad thing to realize that, but they're testing boundaries. Like anyone who's ever been around a kid and you try and put them to bed, you'll see how mean they can get. Yeah. But you know what I mean? They're testing boundaries. It's all part of growing up. And that's what I mean about we can be bullies and we can be bullied.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will never admit that they would have been a bully at one time in their life, but they probably were. Whether it was in a relationship with a friend, whether it was in the schoolyard and they were the bully. But it's like no one wants to admit that that was actually part of their growing up. But we all kind of did it at some point in some aspect. I think like, yeah, I think if you look at it this way, imagine we lived in a world where fatness, you know, like say like we were in the Rubenesque stage, or when, you know, like back in the day when like being fat was seen as a sign of wealth. Probably the fatter children would be looking at the skinnier children and excluding them. And we would have to teach them to not do that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean though? You would be like, no, you can't exclude them now because they're just real thin. Do you know what I mean? You can't now. Because back then being thin meant you were poorer. You would have to do those kind of bullying. But we have to make sure. And like, again, it's that thing of it's okay to be either. But like, we have to teach our children by leading by example, I think is one part of it.
Absolutely. And one of the things that comes up in the book, Fat Talk, is how a lot of the studies around children who grow up to have eating disorders, a lot of the studies focus on the mother's behavior and how that may affect a child, but there's actually very little studies that mention the father's behavior.
I was just going to ask.
Yeah, and there is. She tells a story in her book about a dad who was like training for like an ultra marathon and like skipping breakfast and having bulletproof coffee and all of these sort of things, and then their child kind of, you know, taking an interest and him thinking, oh, my kid's interested in my, you know, healthy like lifestyle or whatever, and then realizing he was promoting, you know, without
intentional
and without having a weight problem and without, you know, having any kind of major focus on being fat or thin or whatever, it actually just still fostered this kind of, you know, unhealthy kind of thinking. So this is a fantastic book. As I said, I really want to talk to this person.
Great.
It'd be amazing. Kate Mann, who we interviewed a while ago, is the person who turned me on to Virginia's work. But I'll just read another excerpt from her book where she says, you know, we've been told over the course of an almost 40-year-old public health crusade against the rising tide of children's weight. We've been told by our families, our doctors and voices of authority, including the former First Lady, Michelle Obama, that raising a child at a so-called healthy body weight is an essential part of being a good parent, right? But when we talk about the impossibility of raising a happy fat child, we're ignoring the why. She says it's not their bodies causing these kids to have higher rates of anxiety, depression, and disordered eating behaviors, even when high weight does play a role in health issues. She says it's often a corresponding symptom in a larger galaxy of concerns. The real danger to a child in a larger body is how we treat them for having that body. Fat kids are harmed by the world, including too often their own families, and our culture that's repulsed by fat children long before this epidemic of, so-called obesity. So, this is the first thing that I thought of when I was thinking about this episode. It's not, yes, there can be health impacts from having a higher body weight and all of that, but the most damaging thing is how you're treated.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Fad Camp. As always, we want to thank our producer, Darren Lee. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to review us on iTunes, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Great ratings and reviews really help more people find the show, and it would mean a lot to us.
Make sure to share the episodes with friends and family or on your social media. Every listen helps.
And we absolutely love hearing from our listeners, so please get in touch with any of your diet stories on fadcamppodcast@gmail.com.
This show is part of the Head Stuff Podcast Network, a hub for the creative and the curious. Shows are produced in association with Head Stuff and the Podcast Studios Dublin. Find out more or become a member at headstuffpodcasts.com.